Children of the world, reach out.
Or management made a decision. There was nothing that LeToya and I could do about it. Did it hurt? Absolutely, because we were friends.
Really, the dispute was between LeToya, myself, and management. It really had nothing to do with the girls, but because that was Beyonce's father, I think it turned into more of a personal thing.
You'll never believe what Beyonce did to LeToya Luckett, because the truth is deeper, messier, and a whole lot more personal than anyone ever admitted. LeToya was one of the original voices of Destiny's Child, but somewhere between the fame and the fallout, her name got wiped from the story.
Management made a decision. There was nothing that LeToya and I could do about it. Did it hurt? Absolutely, because we were friends. I went to school with these girls.
People said it was business, management decisions, creative differences, but that ain't the whole truth. There's a darker theory, one that involves a rumored connection to Jay-Z that might have changed everything.
The hardest thing is seeing pain on someone's face that you caused and then have to deal with yourself.
Was Beyonce's camp protecting her image or removing a threat? Because LeToya didn't just get kicked out of the group, she got blacklisted. So what really happened between Beyonce and LeToya Luckett, and what did it cost them both? Destiny's Child was one of the biggest girl groups ever, but their journey to the top wasn't as perfect as it looked. Behind the catchy songs and flashy performances was a messy story filled with backstabbing, big dreams, and broken hearts that shook the group's original members. In the early 90s, the group began as a quartet called Girls' Time, managed by Matthew Knowles, Beyoncé's father. Matthew took on the role of manager with a determination to turn the girls into superstars. He secured gigs, negotiated contracts, and eventually got the group signed to a major label. But the road to success wasn't smooth. Girls' Time struggled to gain traction, and their first big break, a performance on Star Search, ended in a devastating loss. Refusing to give up, Matthew rebranded the group, slimming it down to 4 members: Beyoncé Knowles, Kelly Rowland, LeToya Luckett, and LaTavia Robertson. Thus, Destiny's Child was born. The name, inspired by a passage in the Bible, signaled a fresh start, and the group quickly gained momentum with their debut album in 1998. But as the group climbed the charts with hits like No 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 and Bills Bills Bills, cracks began to form. LeToya and LaTavia, both original members, started to feel uneasy about how the group's finances were being handled. Matthew Knowles, who managed every aspect of their careers, controlled the money. The two questioned why their earnings weren't reflecting the group's success. They requested an independent manager to oversee their finances, a move that would seal their fate. Instead of addressing their concerns, Matthew acted swiftly. In a shocking twist, LeToya and LaTavia were replaced without their knowledge. They only found out when the music video for Say My Name was released, featuring 2 new members, Michelle Williams and Farrah Franklin, alongside Beyoncé and Kelly.
Say my name, no one is a...
For fans, the sudden change was confusing. For LeToya and LaTavia, it was devastating. They had built the group from the ground up, only to be cast aside without warning. Matthew cited creative differences as the reason for their removal, but behind closed doors, it was clear that their questioning of his authority was the real issue. In the aftermath, LeToya and LaTavia were left to pick up the pieces of their lives and careers. Both women struggled to move forward, facing financial difficulties and emotional trauma. LeToya recalled feeling betrayed and blindsided, while LaTavia turned to alcohol to cope with the pain. Their dismissal from Destiny's Child marked the beginning of a long and painful journey. Meanwhile, Destiny's Child continued to soar. With their new lineup, they released chart-topping albums and cemented their place as global superstars. But the success came at a cost. Farrah Franklin, one of the new members, left the group after just a few months, citing the intense pressure and toxic environment created by Matthew's management style.
Ultimately, it was management. He did get kind of loud.
Over the years, both LeToya and LaTavia have spoken out about their experiences, shedding light on the darker side of Destiny's Child's rise to fame. LeToya revealed how she struggled with self-doubt and feelings of inadequacy after being dismissed. LaTavia shared stories of Matthew's favoritism, recalling how Beyoncé and Kelly were given new cars while she and LeToya were left out. Imagine being at the pinnacle of a meteoric rise to fame, only to have it all snatched away in the blink of an eye. That's exactly what happened to LeToya Luckett during her stint as one of the original members of Destiny's Child. Born on March 11, 1981, in Houston, Texas, LeToya's journey to stardom seemed predestined. With a voice that could stop you in your tracks, she found herself auditioning for the iconic group thanks to her childhood friendship with none other than Beyoncé Knowles.
She said, you want to audition for my dad? And I said, absolutely. And she gave me the biggest break of my life.
Destiny's Child exploded onto the music scene, delivering chart-topping hits like Say My Name and No No No. With their undeniable talent and synchronized chemistry, the group was on a fast track to becoming a cultural phenomenon. But behind the glamorous facade, cracks began to form. By the year 2000, LeToya and her bandmate, Latavia Roberson, found themselves suddenly ousted from the group under circumstances that remain a point of contention to this day. The drama reportedly stemmed from dissatisfaction with the group's management, which was helmed by Beyoncé's father, Matthew Knowles. LeToya and Latavia felt sidelined, claiming favoritism toward Beyoncé and Kelly Rowland when it came to lead vocal parts and overall spotlight. Their dissatisfaction led them to voice their concerns and advocate for new management. However, this move was seen as an act of rebellion.
Management made a decision. There was nothing that LeToya and I could do about it. Did it hurt? Absolutely, because we were friends. I went to school with these girls.
Things took a shocking turn when LeToya and Latavia first learned about their dismissal. Not through a conversation, but by watching Destiny's Child's music video for Say My Name. Instead of seeing themselves on screen, they saw two new faces singing their parts. This blindsided departure left both girls grappling with feelings of betrayal and confusion, especially given the close-knit bond they had shared with their groupmates. LeToya has often spoken about how deeply the incident hurt her, likening it to losing a family. While she harbored no ill will toward her former bandmates, she admitted the fallout left emotional scars that required years of healing. The public, too, was left divided, with some sympathizing with LeToya and Latavia, while others praised the new lineup's continued success. For LeToya, the immediate aftermath of her exit was nothing short of a whirlwind. It was a blow that could have easily derailed her career permanently. But some people in the industry whispered that there was more to the story. Much more. Now here's where things get really interesting. Around this time, rumors started swirling about a possible connection between LeToya and a certain Brooklyn rapper who would later become Beyoncé's husband, Jay-Z. The timeline is important here. This was before Jay-Z and Beyoncé were officially a couple. They wouldn't start dating publicly until the early 2000s. But industry insiders have long speculated that there might have been some kind of flirtation or brief relationship between LeToya and Jay-Z before he got serious with Beyoncé. Think about it, if you're Beyoncé and you're interested in this guy, but then find out he might have history with your groupmate. That's bound to create some tension, right? Now, none of the people involved have ever confirmed these rumors, but that hasn't stopped fans from connecting the dots. Some even point to lyrics in LeToya's solo music years later, looking for subtle references to the situation. Lines about betrayal, feeling replaced, complicated relationships. Could these be hints about what really went down? Of course, without anyone involved speaking directly about it, these rumors remain just that, rumors. But they've persisted for over 2 decades now, becoming part of the Destiny's Child legend. The silence from all parties has only fueled the speculation, leaving fans to fill in the blanks with their own theories. What we do know for sure is that the fallout was messy, really messy. Anyway, When LeToya Luckett and Latavia Robertson were kicked out of Destiny's Child, they didn't just walk away and let it go. And who could blame them? One minute they were part of a tight-knit girl group, and the next, they were watching their faces vanish from album covers and music videos, without so much as a warning. It wasn't just about fame or popularity. This was about the years they had put into the group, the rehearsals, the performances, the sacrifices. So when they were suddenly replaced, they knew they had to fight back. So what did they do? They lawyered up. LeToya and Latavia filed a lawsuit against Beyoncé, Kelly Rowland, and Matthew Knowles, who was not only the group's manager, but also Beyoncé's father. They alleged that they had been unfairly removed from the group and were denied royalties and profits they had rightfully earned as original members. In simple terms, they were saying, hey, we helped build this group. We deserve a fair share of the money and credit. And they had a point. Destiny's Child didn't just pop out of nowhere. These girls had been performing together for years. Long before the fame, the Grammys, and the #1 hits, they were out there hustling, singing at talent shows, local events, anywhere they could get noticed. So being pushed out right when the group hit it big, that stung. But the situation didn't stop there. Fast forward to 2002. Destiny's Child drops one of their biggest hits, Survivor. It was all about moving on and being stronger after betrayal or loss. The song was catchy, empowering, and instantly iconic. But there was a problem. Some of the lyrics hit a little too close to home.
But I'm smarter. You thought that I'd be stressed without you, but I'm chilling. You thought I wouldn't sell without you.
You thought that I'd be broke without you, but I'm richer. You thought I wouldn't sell without you. Sold 9 million. Now, if you were LeToya or Latavia, how would you take that? To them, these weren't just lyrics. They were personal jabs. They believed the song was aimed squarely at them and that Beyoncé and the team were rubbing salt in the wound. And even more seriously, they felt the song violated their previous settlement, a legal agreement that was supposed to protect both sides from further conflict or public attacks. So they filed another lawsuit. This time, the focus was on Survivor and how the lyrics allegedly broke the terms of their original legal deal. Once again, both sides ended up settling the lawsuit out of court. No one went to trial, and the details of the settlement were kept private. But while the legal issues may have been wrapped up on paper, emotionally, things were far from over. Because by this point, it wasn't just about business anymore. This was personal. LeToya and Latavia had grown up with Beyoncé and Kelly. They had shared hotel rooms, tour buses, late-night phone calls, and dreams of stardom. There was real friendship there once, sisterhood even. But now, that bond was shattered. And it wasn't just a breakup, it was a full-on public messy divorce being played out in the media. Fans took sides, rumors flew, and the press painted Beyoncé and Kelly as the winners, while LeToya and Latavia were pushed into the background. For years, anytime Destiny's Child was mentioned, people barely remembered the original four, and that hurt. And while the courts may have settled the legal issues, the emotional fallout was just beginning. Imagine being on top of the world one day, performing for thousands of screaming fans, seeing your face on TV and magazine covers, and then suddenly, it's all gone. That's what happened to LeToya. After leaving Destiny's Child, she fell hard from the heights of fame, while Beyoncé and the new lineup continued their rise to superstardom. LeToya found herself working at a clothing boutique in Houston called Lady L. In a tearful Instagram Live years later, she described what it was like to be in a grocery store shortly after leaving the group and hearing "Say My Name" play over the speakers, a song she had recorded with them but been replaced on in the video. The pain in her voice as she told that story showed just how deeply the situation had wounded her. The financial reality was harsh too. Despite having been part of multi-platinum hits, LeToya struggled to make ends meet. Those royalty checks she fought for in court, they weren't enough to live on. She had to start completely over.
I remember the radio station, the radio host, talking about the breakup. And I was like, I gotta get out of here.
Finding a new path in the music industry wasn't easy either. Record executives were hesitant to sign her. Some feared backlash from the powerful Knowles camp. Others just didn't believe she could succeed on her own. She faced rejection after rejection, door after door closing in her face. But LeToya had something to prove. After years of perseverance, she finally signed with Capitol Records in 2004. 2 years later, her debut solo album, LeToya, hit #1 on the Billboard 200 chart. Her single, Torn, became a hit, proving she had talent that stood on its own. That success must have felt like sweet vindication after everything she'd been through. She showed the world, and maybe Beyoncé too, that she wasn't just a disposable member of a group. She was an artist in her own right. Anyway, while LeToya was trying to put her career back on track, she got a little distracted by none other than Jagged Edge's Brian Casey. Their relationship? Oh, it was as hot as a Texas summer, but twice as messy. Picture a toddler trying to eat spaghetti. That's how chaotic it was. Brian even admitted to being far from perfect during their time together. He said, "I was terrible in that relationship. You know how it is when you're young, in the business, and everything's coming at you at once." He added that he was caught up in the whirlwind of fame, and despite spending quality time with LeToya, she'd still ask, "Why can't you just do right?" The two were on again, off again more times than you can count. One minute they were writing love songs together, and the next they were throwing shade at each other online. It was like watching a real-life soap opera unfold. Even Brian's mom got involved, telling him, "That girl really loves you to stick around after everything you've done." 5 years of drama, secrets, and makeups, it was wild. But the gossip didn't stop there. Rumors started flying that Brian was still seeing his ex while dating LeToya. Others said LeToya was too clingy. It was all just a big, messy situation. She later reflected on their breakup, calling it a major divorce. He admitted it was tough watching LeToya move on, especially with his career taking off.
It's a major divorce, and seeing your partner move on and be successful and folk love them.
And speaking of career comebacks, in 2006, LeToya dropped her self-titled debut album. And guess what? It went straight to #1 on the Billboard 200. That's right, Miss LeToya proved she didn't need Destiny's Child to shine. But of course, success comes with haters. As soon as she started climbing the charts, people came out of the woodwork claiming she used ghostwriters, couldn't really sing, or just got lucky. Despite the noise, LeToya stayed focused and kept making music, showing she wasn't here to play. Looking back, LeToya said it was a scary leap, but one she'd take all over again. "I had to learn to get out of my own way," she shared. "If I let fear take over, I would have missed out on what I believe is God's best for me." While the Destiny's Child drama has dominated conversations about LeToya Luckett, she stirred up other controversies throughout her career that show different sides of her personality. One of the biggest public controversies happened in 2013 when LeToya made a bold Facebook post about religion and the way people treat homosexuality. She wrote, "Being gay is the only sin people focus on. Cursing, sin. Before marriage, sin. Sins are sins. Y'all are too judgmental. That's also a sin." That one post exploded on social media. Some people praised her for pointing out something that a lot of folks think, but are too scared to say. That people tend to pick and choose which sins they get angry about, and that the gay community often gets judged more harshly than others. On the flip side, there were also people who criticized her, arguing that by calling homosexuality a sin, she was still being offensive, whether she meant to be or not. It was a classic case of one message being read in many different ways. But one thing was clear. LeToya wasn't afraid to speak her truth, even if it caused a stir. Of course, some of her other controversies tie right back to Destiny's Child. In 2002, LeToya and LaTavia Robertson filed another lawsuit against the group. Yes, a second one. This time, it was over the song Survivor. LeToya and LaTavia argued that the lyrics broke the rules of their earlier legal settlement, which included an agreement that no one would talk bad about each other publicly. The lawsuit was eventually settled out of court, but it reopened old wounds and reminded everyone how messy that breakup really was. Behind the scenes, LeToya was also dealing with real-life consequences, especially financial ones. When she left Destiny's Child, she didn't just lose fame, she lost income. The group had been her main job, and once she was out, money became tight. She later opened up in interviews about how hard it was to start over. She had to figure out new management, look for new record deals, and learn how to navigate the business side of music all over again. It wasn't easy, and she admitted that she felt taken advantage of in some situations early on. A big part of what led to the split, according to LeToya, was favoritism within the group. She and LaTavia felt like management gave certain members more attention, more opportunities, and more power when it came to decision-making. For LeToya, that kind of imbalance made it hard to feel like she truly had a voice in the group. Combine that with the fact that she preferred a more soulful R&B sound, while the group was heading in a more pop direction. And you can see how tensions started to build. She wasn't just unhappy with the business side of things, but also with the creative direction they were being pushed into. All of this, the legal battles, the money troubles, the lack of control, took a serious emotional toll on LeToya. After the breakup, she went through a period of depression. She felt lost, doubted herself, and questioned whether she'd ever get another chance in the industry. In later interviews, she talked about crying herself to sleep and feeling like her dreams had been ripped away. It was a dark chapter, and she admitted it took time to rebuild not just her career, but her confidence. Still, she didn't give up. Slowly but surely, LeToya started to put her career back together. She worked hard to get new representation, started recording again, and even landed acting roles. The road was long, but she stayed focused. She knew what she wanted and was determined to prove that she could make it without Destiny's Child. In any case, it's been over 20 years since LeToya Luckett was removed from Destiny's Child, and the ripple effects of that decision are still felt today. Both women have built separate lives and careers. Beyoncé becoming one of the biggest superstars on the planet, LeToya finding success as a solo artist and actress. They've rarely been seen together since the split. At industry events where both are present, they've typically kept their distance. The tension might not be as raw as it once was, but the wounds from the past haven't fully healed either. Fans still debate what might have been. Would Destiny's Child have been even bigger with the original lineup intact? Would LeToya's career have taken a completely different path? And what about those Jay-Z rumors? Was there really something there, or was it all just gossip? What we do know is that the music industry can be ruthless. Friendships, even ones formed in childhood like Beyoncé and LeToya's, can be casualties of business decisions and personal ambitions. The Destiny's Child breakup wasn't just about changing a group's lineup. It was about lives being altered forever. Anyway, that's it for this video, folks. Bye.